in 3 dimensions, got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand up.
All right, what's good, fam? Welcome back to another episode of Racially Speaking. It's me, your host, David Phipps. And look, full disclosure, we're about to do a re-record on this one. I got my little brother, my guy, Travis Woolard, aka Trav, literally in the house, in my living room tonight. What's going on, man?
What's up, OG? It was good to be back here. A couple of days after the first one.
Yeah, I gotta take that on the chin. I'm hopeful that this is going to be even better. And look, we're not scripted here, but we're going to try and recreate what I think was a beautiful conversation we had a few days ago.
Yes, sir.
It's on me. The audio, I wasn't with the audio. Went back to start uploading stuff, and man, as y'all say, as the kids say, I was tight. I was not happy. So the video looked good, and then I was listening. I was like, yeah, this ain't coming through the mics. It's going through the Mac speakers, which for the tech people is not a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to re-record this, but I'm excited, man.
Yes, sir.
I know it's going to be good. And we got to recreate and come back better.
Yes, sir.
With this, it's going to be, the second iteration like LeBron. The latter half of his career. And speaking of, this is kind of where we started last time, but we're a day late or a couple of days later. The series is a little older, but Trav, something that has united us from day one of our relationship, which we're going to get into the trenches with in this episode, is of course in great sweatshirt for the podcast. Yes, but is our love, our not just love, but our like day one lifelong Lakers fandom in both of us. Now, I got some years on you, so those day ones were not the same day, but still day one. Like as long as we've both been alive. Shout out, of course, to the GOAT, Kobe Bryant. If you guys aren't watching, Travis got the Kobe sweatshirt on, repping. He knew he had to bring that over tonight. Trav, you want to? Let's start here. We're gonna have to keep this tight because we got a 10 p.m. tip-off tonight, Game 5 with the Lakers. Of course, when we recorded a few days ago, we were fresh off watching a 10:45 tip-off West Coast time the previous night. So, hey, they gave us an early tip tonight.
Right.
10 p.m. Look, you want to explain to the listeners a little bit about our relationship as it goes with how we discuss the Lakers. I think they'd be interested in hearing that. And the people who know us that are listening know exactly what we're talking about.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I would love to do that. So between me and OG, I both believe we're both diehard Laker fans. We love the Lakers. Kobe specifically really united us, and kind of like the tragic passing of him. It was really like a bonding.
I was gonna say we met pretty soon after he passed.
Yeah, just maybe a year or two after, but it was still fresh to me, because it was so big. That united us for sure, and just our love for the Lakers. But the dynamic between the way that we talk about the Lakers is always a funny thing, even to the people around us. So you got me. I'm pretty much always very optimistic when it comes to the Lakers. We win maybe 3 games in a row, and I'll think we're going to the finals or winning it all.
Yeah.
And I'll tell them, I'll send a text to OG. I'm like, number 18's on the way. Put up the banner. And we can lose 1 game, and then it's the complete opposite to OG. He's like, season's over. We're done.
I mean, I'd say it's even worse than that. You'd say 3-game winning streak, and I'm like, oh, well, here's the only reason they won. They should have lost all. Like, here's all the reasons they should have lost. And it's just, it's a fluke. And I mean, yeah. So in the original audio, you call me a realist, not a pessimist. Do you still feel that way?
I still feel that way. I believe maybe some sort of mixture there could be true, but I think OG is a realist. He definitely keeps me grounded when it comes to expectations and reality versus my high hopes. But he keeps it real. He's gonna keep it a buck, and however he's feeling, he's gonna let you know for sure. And yeah, especially when it comes to the Lakers, he will keep it all the way a buck. If he thinks we're trash and we don't have any chance, he's gonna let you know. And we kind of like combat on that back and forth with that whole thing. So yeah.
I mean, I don't want to be this way, you know? I mean, I want to live a life. I want to live in your shoes and be able to enjoy this, but I gotta do some work on myself. I gotta get the joy. Cause even, you know, I think they can literally win, like you said 3, but like 10, 12, 15 games in a row. And I'm still like, nah, we're going to mess it up.
Yeah.
We got, for those of you guys aren't basketball fans, last year we got Luka Doncic in the what's the expression, in the not dawn, in the dark of the night. I don't think that's it, but it was out of nowhere. And to summarize, it was perhaps the craziest trade in the history of the league. And the Lakers somehow got the top 3 player in the league.
Oh yeah,
out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think I saw you the next morning at church, and you're of course like, like, oh, like we're like, we're getting a chip this year.
Yep.
Like, it's done. We got Luka. And somehow it honestly hurt me a little bit, because I'm like, I still feel I'm not all the way there. I'm still like, nah, we're gonna figure out a way to mess this up. It's not that big a deal. Like, here's how it's gonna go wrong. And man, I'm sorry you gotta put up with that. Like, man, I appreciate you sticking it out with me, because if I was you, I'd be like, man, I'm not talking to him anymore about this, because it just brings me down.
No, I love it. For me, if you guys like truly could understand the joy that I get of like watching the Lakers win, just so I could talk to OG and like text him and say like, hey, like check us out, we looking good. And it's always like, all right.
Likewise, we'll get down like 10 in the first quarter. I'll text you just to bust your chops, but season's over.
Season's over. with the period at the end.
Season's over. Oh man. All right. Well, most people didn't come to this to hear us talk about the Lakers.
That's true.
Perhaps some of you guys did. Shout out.
Yeah.
But look, I think in all seriousness, our relationship, as we talk about the Lakers, we can use that as a springboard to launch into the rest of this. I think it is a kind of a microcosm, a small example, snippet, if you will, of our relationship.
Yeah.
Look, Trav, when I met you, I of course met you here in Radford. You were a college student with the ministry you're both involved with and both work for now.
Yep.
And man, our relationship is really special. Like, I don't just throw that around lightly. Like, I truly, and people know this, look at you as, man, family.
Yeah.
My little brother, I'd do anything for you. You literally just helped tuck my little girl in and prayed over her. Like, they love you. You're a big brother to them. Little brother to Caitlin. So we love you.
Yeah.
When I met you and I've poured into you, mentored you for 3-4 years now, worked beside you doing some vocational ministry this past year. I learned a lot from you. And pertaining to this podcast, racially speaking, and of course, if you were a listener for any amount of time, you know that I focus a lot on racial issues as it intersects with our faith. And so you're somebody I talk to all the time about this intersection, this dynamic.
Yeah.
And it's our relationship. Our relationship is one of the things that I think about when I think about the intersection of these things, and how we kind of balance each other out, being from different generations, being from different demographics, cultures, different walks of life, different times following the Lord and whatnot.
Yeah.
We have some similarities that cross over. We're both from a 757 area, but different areas, Norfolk, Hampton, and different demographics and whatnot. I say all that because it's been so cool meeting you. And some people know the longer story, but I'll try to keep it pretty short. But when I met you, I was introduced to you through our mutual friend, Caitlin Brown, who's our brother as well. And I met you at a place where I was, frankly, not doing great. emotionally, spiritually. I was going through perhaps one of the hardest times in my life, and the Lord really used you, and you know this, in my life to help me see things in the Lord. And ironically, you weren't even following the Lord yet at that point, but like you wouldn't have identified as a, you know, professing Christian,
right?
Listeners. And so, but you came interested in this whole Christian thing, but then also came with a angst and desire to ask questions about culture, racial diversity, racial justice, and how even politics a little bit, how that kind of intersected with what it looked like to live out this Christian life.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
And that was some of a big part actually in what I was navigating as somebody that even had been in this walk for a lot longer, most of my life, but was really wrestling with some things, and specifically a lot of the Christian public witness and how to navigate these things well. Okay. That was long-winded, but I got there.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's, I think, what was summarized our initial meet and what kind of was a springboard for our relationship.
For sure. Yeah.
So I know you know all this, and you know much more of the details, but for listeners, that's kind of where we started. And as time has gone on, what has been a lot of what has grown our relationship, I'd say. That's pretty good summary, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd wonder, and you know, this is not technically the first time, but when we originally recorded this, and I'm going to expand even more now that we are re-recording, but this is really the first time I've asked you. I wonder what your perspective is and all that, because I know we kind of shared like really broad things with each other over the years, but I don't think I've really ever asked you like, okay, what were you thinking initially when you met me and started to get into getting your feet wet with the intersection of these things I've kind of just explained?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was 100% like an accurate way to put it, and how our relationship kind of like initiated and how it started. So I came with my brother Kalen. We already shouted him out, but me and Kalen are from the same area. This is my brother. We grew up together, and he was meeting with OG, and I was really interested. You know,
OG is me.
Yeah.
I did not deal myself that that nickname, but I love it. But just so listeners know, Trav did that on his own, and I receive it. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. I always spam that. Yeah, that's a good thing to clarify. But I was very interested. It was a very pivotal time in my life. Around that time, I just, you know, I realized that I wanted to live for something greater. I was going through a lot of identity issues, such as those things. So I ended up coming with Kalen to meet up with OG for the first time. It's my first time meeting him. And he says, you know, whenever he talks about us first coming around, he always says like he felt like he gave his least, and you know he was going through a really hard time around that time. But for me and Kay, he gave everything. I'll never get tired of saying that because it's true. I feel like he genuinely poured life into us every single time that we would meet up, and every single day, and doing life with them was truly so impactful for the both of us. So my first time meeting him, I could just tell he's very passionate about exactly what he was talking about. And getting to know him, I could see that this was like a burden on his heart, and that he was very passionate about it. And I respected it so much. And then around that time, I ended up coming to know Jesus. Like I was saved, and the Lord had changed my whole life. And I was trying to navigate these things because they were topics that I don't feel like were talked about a lot just in church circles and in the church in general. And I could tell that OG was just like not afraid to like tackle those or like talk about them, and bridge that to faith. And what does that mean for the person that is walking with Jesus? And really, like, my heart started to burden for that, and I just wanted to ask him so many questions pertaining to those things. um so coming to him, it truly was a gift to me, because he was so like, it felt like he was just so excited to be there, and for me to like ask those questions and like get his wheels turning on those things. And I genuinely felt like I could go to him and just be comfortable to ask him about these questions about, you know, the injustices that are happening specifically in my community, about the things going on in the world, that are like touchy things, but really important things. And how do they bridge to faith? So that time was very pivotal for me. And, you know, the Lord definitely used you in so many ways of just like answering questions for me and doing life with me and kind of walking through that whole thing. And I'm still navigating through that. Like, I still want to learn so much more, because I feel like the more I learn, I just don't know. But yeah, that's how I look at that time and how pivotal it was for me, if that makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Let's have to be the last of the putting me up on any kind of pedestal. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, and to clarify, I mean, I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, I was excited that you were asking those questions, and I felt like the Lord was using me with what little faith I was coming to times meeting with you and Kaylin during that time period of my life. But the Lord was using that even small desire to keep me afloat, because a lot of my wrestling with the Lord during that time period was very much like, I know that there's a huge need to speak into this space, especially at that time. People do the math 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It was a time, and it was a time where I was very just having a lot of identity crisis as well. Like, I've been walking with the Lord for a long time, and was perhaps not for the first time, but it was really culminating in a lot of ways, realizing, oh man, everyone that is doing this Christian community and walk with me doesn't see things how I see it and how I believe is right to see it as Christians. And that's not about me being right and knowing everything and other people being wrong about everything, but just the heart posture was, why am I having so much trouble having conversations about being for people of color thriving and speaking up against injustices going on in our world as Christians? So that was a lot where my identity struggle was. And to have you coming into my life just out of nowhere with this desire to have these conversations, I had to take. I kind of maybe didn't even want to, because I wanted an excuse to kind of peace out from whatever I was doing. But I kind of took it as, all right, well, whatever this is clearly something. So where I'm at is going to be used for something. I never knew how big it would be. We'll get to that in a minute. But that's where I was. So the excitement was also a little bit of just kind of well, who knows what this will be, but it's something more so than like, woo, let's go for this. It was just like, well, I'll do whatever little bit I got to give to this. And yeah, I mean, let's keep going with that a little bit. So fast forward, and we are really fast forwarding because so much has happened. We're, of course, both part of college ministry here in little old Radford. I mean, you specifically are involved with really kind of two very thriving right now. All glory to God, man. But like two very thriving multi-ethnic communities right now in our college ministry. And then our church we go to kind of coincided and grew a lot in this area, other areas too, but in this area of just two kind of visions of what it looks like to cultivate and grow Christian community, with also one of the main priorities being we want this to be a multi-ethnic thriving community. Exactly. And of course, our church and our Christian community and our college ministry is both doing that. And the Lord's got to do all of it. But I think a lot of it, by God's grace, has been through these little conversations we have had, me, you, Kay, definitely many other people, but like started from these little tiny conversations in the midst of, for example, like a you and I, like you not really even really following Jesus at all. And then me being like, I can't, I'm barely hanging on here. So I say all that because we've kind of persevered through some difficult things individually and together. Mm-hmm. And I'd wonder also from your perspective, again, I've never really asked you this candidly or this bluntly, but what would you say that's been like? Because I genuinely think about this. I tell you this sometimes, but not maybe as specifically, but what is it like, or has it been like for you? Because you're overall, not just with the Lakers, but way more positive than I am. It's personality, maybe age, some, but anyway, you're just, everyone knows you were just like you're smiling right now. If you can't see him, like smiling, you're always a positive guy. I don't think most people describe me as that. I'm not fishing for compliments. It's just, that is what it is. Mm-hmm. So I'd wonder what it's been like navigating even something a little more serious, like racial justice or injustice, however you want to say it, beyond the Lakers. Racial injustice, navigating that with me over the years is kind of pouring into you, because as I've shared with you, I struggle perpetually with being too negative or bringing something up like microaggression, or I saw when you experienced this, or are you ever afraid of experiencing this when we go to like a conference or something? Or do you feel welcome, or do you feel like the Black community feels welcome in our spaces that we're both in? Stuff like that. I struggle with insecurity, feeling like, am I just like, Trav's happy, like his friends are happy, like why do I have to bring this kind of stuff up? I struggle with that, you know that, because I'm like, man, like why can't I just like he's happy, everyone's happy, why can't I just be positive?
Right. Yeah.
Like Trav or like Kay, like you guys, why do I always have to be like, oh wait, hey guys, let's look out for racism today? I don't know, do you like, now do this for the audience, like be honest. Yeah, I can hurt my feelings, so I really want to know like what that's been like navigating.
Yeah, it's, for me, it's really helpful through the lens that you look through, because for a while, like even after coming to know Jesus, I felt like I was very ignorant, and I wanted to learn, like you acknowledge that too, but I felt like I was very ignorant to a lot of the things that were going on in the world, and I just didn't want to be ignorant, because I was afraid that I would get into these conversations with other people that maybe are very, passionate, or been affected by these things, or been hurt by these things, and that I can't really love them or care for them the way that I could if I like understood what exactly are they going through. Especially the people in my community where it hits home really close. Like I just want to be knowledgeable about these things and learn, just like you, like how to bridge that to our faith in Jesus. But the reality of it is that like these things are happening in the world. Like there are hard things happening in the world. There are things that we have to talk about, issues that we have to tackle. There is still racism. There is still injustices, and that's just the fact of the matter. Like we always talk about it, like after coming to know Jesus, like I always share with people, like, I'm always smiling and stuff. I always have the joy, but like things aren't cupcakes and rainbows. And, there are issues that we have to navigate in this world that are not always going to be like comfortable conversations, but they're needed. They're very needed and they're very necessary. And if you want people to feel seen and feel loved and feel cared for and feel like considered, then these are issues that we have to talk about. And I just didn't want to be ignorant, like someone that was maybe like, oh, this doesn't matter. All that matters is us knowing Jesus, following Jesus, reading our Bibles, praying, going to church. This is all that matters. Like God is going to take care of all of that at the end of the age. Right. So that's kind of like my perspective. And I feel like you gave me a new lens to like dig into these things, to ask more questions, to actually research more, and to figure out what's going on, or like what's deeper than what's being said at face value. So I don't know if that answers like,
I mean, you touched on maybe perhaps one of the biggest things that comes up in these conversations, for better and for worse. Mm-hmm. So you even just in that last little bit mentioned, I forget exactly what you said, but you said in different words the whole let's just preach the gospel, or like we can all be together on this because that's what being Christian is. It doesn't mean, it's not exclusive. Like by like inherently, it is not an exclusive thing. It's for everybody.
Right.
Like Jesus, Christianity is for everybody. It's clear throughout all of Scripture, and so that's one thing. And that's of course one of the main things that gets me so upset when that is not agreed upon. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'd wonder, you being a young, unapologetic Christian Black guy from Hampton, Virginia, like you're not somebody that assimilates into other cultures, which I want to ask you more about too, but you're just yourself, like, and everyone knows that. And I think that's beautiful. And so you being able to live that kind of life is what I care about as the older guy looking out for you.
Yeah.
And so I'd wonder how you would describe yourself being able to do that. And has there ever been a time like where you felt, it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying call somebody out or something like that, that, but I mean, like, has it, like, say in your 4 years I've known you and in the communities we're in, always been like that? Or like, has there been a point at any point where, as you said, you've been starting to notice these things, that it wasn't just as much as you believe, and anybody that knows you that's listening knows this about you, like, more than anybody, you are all about everybody. Like, everybody, come on, like you love everybody, and everyone's welcome around you, and that's what you care about. And so has there been a point at all where the declaration, or even just feeling of, hey, we just need to preach the gospel and stay away from talking about any kind of injustice or like a race issue, or even worrying about that ever being a thing?
Oh yeah.
Should come up? Like, has there ever been a point where you're like, hold on, like, even in your soul, like, I don't know, like, that seemed a little bit like that wasn't for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. I think I've been walking with the Lord for about 4 years now, and which is crazy. Just time just flies by. And, I've been able to be around brothers and sisters that I love dearly and that I'm so grateful for. And God has blessed me specifically in this area in Radford, Virginia, Southwest Virginia, with just an amazing family in Christ. And also, friends outside of the faith that I love and care about dearly. But specifically in the faith, I know I've had conversations over the years that I can look back on now and say, like, oh wow, like this was something that they were not, I guess, like realizing is an issue, or specifically maybe impact me or the people around me, because like, not even because they don't care, but they're ignorant, and like it's not something that they believe is worth talking about, if that makes sense, or having a conversation about. So like police brutality or something like that, or just like any big issue that I know you're very passionate about, like, to some brothers and sisters that I've talked to, in comparison, because they segregate the two, in comparison to us knowing Jesus and preaching the gospel, this is not, I guess, important or essential, because at the end of the day, God is just and he's going to take care of all of these things. But I truly believe, like I talked about earlier, that these things are important to talk about. These things are important to consider and to tackle, and these things do need to be dealt with. And while we're here on this earth, like, and as we bring the kingdom of heaven to this earth, as we're walking alongside of the Lord, like he's inviting us into this mission, to make his name known and to tell and make disciples of all nations. Like, I feel like this is very essential. These things are very essential to talk about, to tackle, because these are realities of the world that we live in. And if we're meeting these people and trying to love these people, then these are just things that we have to talk about. So like, that's that's kind of my response to that, if that makes sense. That's something that I've realized over time of like, I know conversations that I've had and brothers and sisters that I've talked to that just bypassed it because they were kind of like ignorant to it. And it's very interesting to me to think about that. So, yeah.
Do you have any like specific examples? Again, not calling specific people out, but I think it could be helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Off the dome, I shared if I'm being honest, I shared an example last time.
I know, I can't remember. Oh, I do remember.
Yeah. You remember what it was?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The hot dogs?
Yes.
Yeah, share that.
And you want to know what's so funny about that?
Well, since then, what's funny to me is we've been to several cookouts, and you showed me the hot dogs, and they ate. Yeah, I mean, you go ahead and share. You weren't kidding,
dude. This is actually so ironic because last podcast, before we had the cookout, I talked about how some of my brothers and sisters in the faith literally did not understand why I like burnt hot dogs. And I was explaining it to him, and I was explaining it to OG of like, that was just the craziest thing to them in the world. Lo and behold, the Sunday comes up after that podcast that we shoot, and I grab my burnt hot dogs, and I get so many eyes, I get so many questions like, Trav, what do you have on your plate? Like, so I just thought that was super ironic, but that was a silly example that I brought up of just like maybe a brother or sister not really understanding and just like not being like judgmental, but just like you could tell they're just like, what? Like that doesn't even make sense to me.
So that's a thing. You confidently say like speak for your community in that, like that's a thing. That's not just like you and your family, but that's like something that's happening at the cookout in Black culture.
I truly believe it. They might eat me up. I truly believe that every single Black person.
I can't speak on it, obviously. I don't know. That's the first I heard about. But when you showed me the ones you were eating on Sunday, I was like, oh, those are burnt.
Those were a little bit more crisp than the, I would say average hot dog that a Black person wants. But I can confidently say that every single Black person and every single Black family wants their hot dogs burnt a little bit more than usual.
Right.
I can say that confidently, but I might get ate up. Somebody come at me if you want, but
you're confident enough that I'm gonna have to risk being ignorant and just ask people. I'm gonna ask our mutual friends, but Trav said this.
Yeah. In comparison to, like really big issues, that was just like a silly, I don't want to like make a joke about like those issues. That was just an example of like, I would say like ignorance that I've come across of like the different cultures and the different dynamic of cultures. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get even more serious than you brought it up. So I mentioned, I never view you and your friend group as, you guys do not, assimilate from my perspective in any of the spaces we're in. And I've seen you in a lot of social situations, really across the board. I've seen you on small and big stages, in videos, if you will. Like you've been in front of a lot of people, you've been in front of not a lot of people. You never assimilate, you don't code switch, as far as I can tell. I wonder, one, do you feel that way? And then two, are you conscious of that at all?
It's so funny because like, honestly, I would say no. And I really appreciate you acknowledging that. But even like the lingo, when it comes to like the lingo that me and like Kay will use coming from where we're from, it's like something that is so embedded into my language and like the way that I greet people and talk to people. And I can never see myself like switching up from that. For example, can I share an example really quick?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Say something. Nope. For example, like me and Kay said like cats. So like, and people say that all around the world. But when we first started meeting people here, they were laughing like, what? Like cats? Like you mean the actual animal cat, like the pet cat? And we're like, no, like we're addressing like a person that we're seeing.
So give like an example to people that don't know what you even that really don't know.
So if I were to be talking to you and like describing somebody that I just saw or just talked to, I would say, oh gee, like I was talking to them cats over there and they wanted to go hoop later or something like that, or like, oh, them cats tripping, or like, you get what I'm saying? And like when we first started like meeting people and saying that, we never stopped because that's just like how we talk. You know, cats will laugh, and then they'll ask questions about it, like what is that even about? So it's like it's funny, and never have I, and I'm not trying to, you know, talk about myself or boost myself up, but never have I even thought about, you know, assimilating or like changing myself because especially after coming to know Christ, just so being so firm in my identity and who God has made me to be, I never want to change. And I never want to change the, you know, who God has made me to be because there's beauty in that. And he's made me and crafted me and knitted me and formed all of us in unique different ways and different cultures and different backgrounds to glorify him.
Yeah.
And, you know, to really show like the intentional God that he is, and how he sees all of us in unique ways. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I mean, and I'd even go as far to say, like, if you had been, if I had noticed, or like you had been somebody that was conscious of, no, in these certain situations, I do code switch, and here's why. This might be controversial, but I don't know if sometimes I just think code switching is even necessary for survival, for the job market, stuff like that. So like I don't necessarily always even to categorize it as, oh, that's somebody that is disingenuine for their gain in a like manipulative way or something.
Yeah.
I don't think it's always bad. That might be, I don't think it's controversial, but I think more it's a little different. Like I think I asked you about both, but I think assimilating is what I just don't want from anybody. Like and that's the whole thing with what majority culture is and the whole hierarchy in when you talk about racism and stuff like that, of like we don't want anybody across the board having to assimilate, but that's the whole thing of like having to is kind of the crux of what assimilating means, of like needing to do it to get X, Y, and Z. And it's not like a monetary gain necessarily. It's I gotta do this or I'm gonna be put to the side type thing. So
that's good.
At the same time, man, I mean, I admire and seeing you and y'all's, you know, your generation and, you know, your generation, people of color and students of color specifically, I'm like, and at our church, you know, that's my whole thing. I'm like, man, I want people to come here from every background. There's some that, you know, they're definitely going to be very in the minority as far as their background potentially and culture, but like I want to, as much as we can, I want this space to be a place where they can feel free to flourish and to be their full selves and not assimilate into, you know, the dominant culture.
That's good.
And I think that's kind of what, you know, is my, I don't know, mainstay, like main motivation, and what, you know, what me and you do really.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about these dynamics a lot. We talked about, I mean, we hit the NBA at the beginning of this, but we talk about music a lot, a good amount. I mean, you grew up on this, but you're a hip hop fan.
Yes, sir.
I'd wonder if you could give people like kind of a peek into your views. I mean, this is such a big topic, but we'll try and do a little snippet of it justice.
Yeah.
What would you say to, you know, as a hip hop fan, what would you say to people that kind of misunderstand hip hop culture, and specifically Christians that perhaps view hip hop culture as just debauchery, sin, drinking, sex, drugs, and guns, even like violence and stuff, and just kind of like put that to the side as all bad? And I mean, I'll be honest, attribute it to Black people. That's all they are, and that's all it is, and that's what they like. And we often, white culture or other cultures, are like, we're not those things. Like, what do you say to, I don't know, people that might, even if it's unintentional, have that kind of view?
And correct me if I'm wrong, but like honestly, my opinion is when I talk about that, I just talk about Black culture, because I feel like hip hop is like literally like interwoven with the identity of Black culture,
100%.
Because of the influence that it has, like even to other cultures, the impact that it's had on the Black culture, Black movies. Like it's all like to me interwoven. And to kind of give context of like where I stand now, I listen to a lot of Christian rap. I'll just say that a lot of Christian hip hop. And I truly thank God for our brothers and sisters that are like redeeming a lot of the debauchery that people see in hip hop. The problem that I have is, like we talked about this last time, is that people, man, people will look at Black culture and look at hip hop, and basically like the identity of it and the face of it is ratchetness. Like it literally is just like brokenness and sin. And a lot of it is 100%. Like I can stand here, I can sit here and say
you're not saying that none of that's true.
Yeah, exactly. I can sit here and say that there are so many problems and so many issues that we have in the Black community. And me growing up and like seeing that in the limelight, watching BET, watching 106 in Park, watching my dad literally has Thug Life tatted on his rib cage, like biggest Tupac fan ever. Like I know all about it, right? Sorry about that. I know all about it. But like I think it's I think it's unhealthy, especially like for us growing up. This is what I talked about. I'm trying to get back on track with that.
You're good.
Of like the ways that we viewed our own culture growing up and what we attest to the Black experience. Because I think it's,
you mean like as you view your own culture, or how the outside?
Yeah, so I'll talk about inside out and then outside in, if that makes sense. For me, like growing up and seeing all of that, like it really felt like, oh, this is exactly what it is, because you only know about what you see and what you truly know. So like growing up, seeing the music videos and seeing the Tyler Perry movies of like the destructive families with the baby mamas, with the dads not being there, and like that's pretty much like all we would see growing up. So like that was the limit. Like that was the, not the standard, but was like the reality of like, oh, like this just happens on an everyday basis in our community.
Okay, so you did this last time, so you threw a little bit of shade at Tyler Perry for those portrayals. So which I think is, it's interesting. Can you unpack that a little bit? Like why is that, you think, harmful to forming people's views of the Black community with those consistent portrayals?
Yeah. It is so funny. It is so funny. Like since the past podcast, like a lot of things that we were talking about, like have actually like I've like heard about or talked about again.
Oh, okay.
So it's this one friend I have actually. They go here and they're white. And they told me about their family like watching Tyler Perry movies. And I was like, wait, what? Like this is so crazy. This happened since then. And I was like, what? Like you guys watch Tyler Perry movies? And I just talked about that. And they were like, yeah, like they're absolutely hilarious. Like they're funny. And like I was so thrown aback and so shocked. But then I started thinking like, bro, like that is so dangerous to me, because I think about the context of Tyler Perry movies and like what they're telling about the Black community. And every single time I watch it, I get a funny feeling, because I'm just like, you can tell like this is a little bit of like this parodic like type of humor, like it's like parody, but at the same time, like in every single movie, like we're being portrayed in this way, like talking about the broken households and all of the craziness going on. You about to say something?
No, that's good. I was gonna say, sure. That's interesting. I've seen maybe a couple. I'm not like well versed in Tyler Perry, but I'm probably more familiar with him as a person, not even his movies. Like I've heard a lot of his. I know he's gotten some hot water over the last couple of years, but I've not viewed him as somebody that is trying to figure out how to say this. Like he's not trying to put down the Black community. He's very for it. Like even financially seems to back it up and is like trying to uplift the Black community. So that's just an interesting thing. Cause like, I think most of the times when entertainers do what you're describing, there's just this like kind of nefarious or like manipulative, like ulterior motive that they're trying to be adjacent to honestly dominant, wealthy, some often white culture on purpose. And such is interesting. I don't know. I haven't seen enough Tyler Perry movies to think that, but I understand exactly what you're talking about. When it happens, it's like, man, like, why do people think this is so funny? This makes me, I think how you said it, feel a certain way.
Yeah.
Feel the way about some Asian films and Asian characters out there in entertainment. But anyway, yeah, go on though.
Yeah, it's just like, and even if that's his motive or not, it's just like unintentionally like what is happening and the impact on the Black community and how other people like view us. And that's like honestly been my problem with it. And even my family still loves Tyler Perry movies. Like they'll still want to watch like Diary of a Mad Black Woman. And we used to watch that like all the time.
Medea.
Growing up. Huh?
Medea.
Yep. Yeah. Diary of a Mad Black Woman. Like my family still loves it, but I just feel like the perception that the Black community and the Black culture has like from those movies is just not consistently is not good. And that was the thing that I was talking about last time that I really find as important of like the way that other cultures see us, especially like growing up with Black entertainment, it's always been like this one way. And we always had these Black movies where somebody's dying or, you know, cats are in the street or selling drugs. And like I said, these are realities of the Black community, but I feel like the percentage that they're showing of these things rather than the good families, like the maybe even the Christ-centered families and, you know, good relationships and well off families and put together relationships. I felt like I never seen that growing up. And I felt like for other people in other cultures, they didn't, whenever they were probably watching Black movies, they didn't see that in the movies that we were putting out and stuff. So it's like, that's why I said, like, you only know about like what you truly know and what you truly see.
That's good.
So yeah, I'm really passionate about that for sure.
How do you feel about, I got some of this from an episode of Pass the Mic with Jamar Tisby and Tyler Burns. And they did an episode on kind of I think it's called The Myth of Fatherlessness in the Black community. And Pass the Mic, if you're not familiar, listeners, you should be. This, you know, phenomenal podcast, focused on the Black community and the Christian faith.
Yeah.
And they brought up that in entertainment, you touched on it, but the issue is that people don't realize that even in these and this wasn't Tyler Perry like parodying stuff. It was more like even some of the quote unquote good portrayals or like of the Black family in these Black shows over the years, like in sitcoms, which seemingly is like, oh, this is a positive portrayal.
Yeah.
He said the issue with the thing he had issues with, I think Tyler Burns was talking about this, is that the dad, because he's a Black father. Tyler Burns is a Black father. Yeah. So Jamar Tisby is like, the thing they don't like is that the father figure in all of these sitcoms over the years is always this like outgoing, like haha, like jovial, like jokey, kind of airheaded type funny guy. And he's like, that's fine. Like some guys are like that. So I'm not saying that's like a bad thing.
Yeah.
But he's like, what that portrays, like that's what we all are, and it's a monolith, and there's no like there's no variety is not the right word, but yeah, there's no different kind of portrayals of a healthy father in a Black family. That's not what you also mentioned, like
right, yeah,
leaving his family or like in jail on drugs or like shooting people up, something like that. It's like those are the only two portrayals, and that's what's very harmful to how the rest of the world views the Black community. Like, would you like, do you agree with that? Like, what are your views on like Carl Winslow and Family Matters, and I think about like Anthony Anderson and Blackish is a little more modern. Like, what do you think that's an accurate portrayal or like assessment?
Yeah, it's and you rarely get those, right? Like you literally rarely get those, and even in I think about it, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like that wasn't even the dad, that was Uncle
Phil.
Yeah, that was Uncle Phil, and that was still like clearing them their dad. But the way that portrayed him was like this rich, like not snobby, but like this rich dad that,
or even the one we're not supposed to talk about, the biggest name, probably initials BC, like what, like that kind of portrayal.
Yeah.
I don't know, like what do you feel one way or the other? Like, do you enjoy watching like those shows, or have you ever?
It's funny because like, you want to know, actually, this is my response to it. Watching those shows, I was like, okay, I'm seeing this on the screen, but I don't even think this is like, I don't even think this could be real. Like, to me, truly, like watching Carl Winslow and watching Uncle Phil, I'm like, yeah, this is just TV.
What do you mean not? What do you mean?
Like, I'm talking about genuinely like in the Black community. Like, I'm like, could this even be like a true thing or a real thing? You know what I'm saying? Because like, it was so like rare, if that makes sense. Like, it was only like 2 or 3 different examples of that, but everything else that I was watching, and everything else that was coming out, like in terms of Black entertainment, was the absolute opposite. Like, there weren't any dads, and there weren't like the rich Black dads that were taking care of their children, and everybody was in the house and everything was good, if that makes sense. So yeah.
All right, I'm gonna press you a little bit because I feel like, I don't think you meant to do this, but I think explaining that kind of assessment might, and I don't think we have a lot of these types of listeners, but might hear something like that and think, oh, well, that kind of backs up this whole stereotype of, like I mentioned, that Past the Mic episode was called The Myth of Fatherlessness. There's this, I don't know how familiar you are with this, but is that myth out there, and it's very relevant today. Like, politically, a specific party loves to say racism towards the Black community largely exists. Number one reason, because of Black fathers leaving their families and not being around.
Yeah.
Not police brutality, not inequity in salaries, not redlining, not voting restrictions, not wealth gap, not education disparity, none of that stuff. It's on the Black community, because fathers are leaving and abandoning their families. So I don't think you believe this, but to me, the danger, and I mean danger, of believing that is it explains racism away, and it blames y'all. It blames the Black community. Like, hey, this is y'all's fault. Like, figure it out.
Yeah.
Here's the data. Like, I don't know what would you say to people that think that? Why is that? Oh, I don't know. What would you say to that myth? To kind of dispel it from your point of view.
Yeah, and when I was talking about like, this is not even real, I was talking about that specific like depiction of like the father and who they are, and just like their personalities and stuff like that. That wasn't me saying like this isn't a reality, that like Black fathers are there in the household. If you get what I'm saying.
No, that's a great query. That's a great clarifier.
Yeah. So that's pretty much like what I was talking about. But I think that is dangerous. Like that narrative that like, oh, this is why all of this happens, because like you constantly have Black dads that are walking away from their household. I don't think that's like all the way genuine. I don't think that's all the way like true. There's a lot of holes in that, and that is dangerous. I think that is harmful for sure.
Yeah.
And misinforming.
Yeah.
So
what would you say? Would you be able to explain that? Like, let's just say, I don't know all the stats off the top of my head, but like, let's say, and I think you even acknowledged some of this, some of your experience, some of your friends' experiences, and in your community. Like, what if, like, let's say the numbers show that is true, in a sense of like, there's disparity in the amount of fatherlessness in the Black community versus white community. I don't know. I don't know that for sure, but I think you've touched on how you're not denying there are certain things in the Black community that are, you're not saying nothing is true or happening.
Oh yeah.
I think we're trying to be clear, me and you right now, that the danger is attributing that to a people group.
Yes.
And being like, that's who y'all are.
Yes.
So
yes.
I don't know, maybe I kind of helped answer our question, but like, how would you explain that to somebody, maybe somebody that's more well versed than you and I are on like stats, or like, look, but like, why does this exist? And like, why are this large number of Black fathers across the country, or Black families without a father in the house versus all these other demographics? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. That's a big question. I'm putting you on the spot, but does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think this would even help me. But to help out, one thing that we were talking about was the Preston Perry thing, and that kind of bridged the gap to this whole conversation of, if you guys don't know, would you like to like break that down?
Yeah, well, that's a great. I knew there was one thing I forgot to ask you about again, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you had brought up recently, listening to I'd say public theologian Preston
Mm-hmm.
Perry. He's on social media. He's a poet, speaker, artist, podcaster, kind of like a social critic. He's married to Jackie Hill Perry, who between the two of them, I think are just phenomenal communicators.
Yes.
Especially Jackie. She's a rapper, writer, speaker, pastor, theologian. They podcast together. Communicates things we're talking about masterfully.
Yes.
But you brought up recently, I didn't have a chance to ask you about it because you brought it up. We're around other people, and just one at the time. But you mentioned hearing Preston Perry talk about how he explained to somebody or navigates being fully himself as a Black Christian.
Yes.
But he was kind of having to combat somebody saying, oh, well, you embracing all of your Black culture is actually anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And there's something that's sinful. You shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
And you said that was helpful to hear. So I wonder if you could, explain that a little bit, why that stood out to you.
That definitely helped me coherently kind of like put together like what I was talking about, what I'm passionate about. So like he was kind of rebuttaling and combating the Christ over culture narrative, basically. And people were upset with him. But like what he was basically saying was, it's like, no, like God created us in our specific unique cultures to glorify him. And I think about Revelation 7:9, talking about every tribe, every tongue, every nation worshiping the Lord, like saying salvation belongs to our Lord, around his throne in heaven. And how important that is, and like that we don't have a God who wants us to disband our culture, and to absolutely negate it and push it away, but to actually embrace our culture through the lens of glorifying Christ through our culture. But the problem is, people will hear Preston Perry say that and say, oh, that means he's embracing all of these debaucherous things and sinful things about our culture. And that leads back to the hip hop conversation, and back to like how black culture is portrayed. So like they'll hear him say that and think, oh, that means you're embracing the ghetto-ness, the rashness, the guns, the sex, all of these things. But that's just absolutely not true.
What did he say? Like, how did he explain it? Because I'm assuming, was he being accused of embracing his full Black culture? Is like what aspects of it? Because I'm sure it wasn't trying to stand 10 toes down and being like, yes, like I don't know, I'm fully embracing, like you said, all the cliche hip hop things, like gun, sex, and drugs stuff. I'm sure it was a lot more like, why are you? I think my assumption is like, was he embracing like, I don't know. Like, I feel like sometimes people say this even if you're like embracing, I don't know what his full background is, but even if you're embracing like African culture, I don't know. Like what exactly was he even defending?
And I don't even want to try to verbatim say what he said and mess up his words. Okay. But one example he brought up, and it kind of brings back like the assimilation talk that you were talking about, of like assimilating, and like all cultures, and this is what I'm passionate about too. Like, I truly believe all cultures can come together and truly worship the Lord in unique ways. He had brought up the Black church thing, like how when Black pastors say God is good, and then the congregation says all the time, and all the time God is good. he said, if you say that, if you go to a white church and you say that, most of the time you're not gonna get a call and response. You're gonna say, "Amen, hallelujah." Like that's just like he was talking about, like the uniqueness of that and the beauty of that, and how he can embrace that and embrace like the difference in that. Basically,
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's what I mean, I would have assumed he was talking about, but it doesn't surprise me, but it irks me a little bit to know that I'm sure it was other Christians that were telling him, "Oh yeah, you shouldn't do that." I think that's a great example, because I think that is often just what you mean, what I mean when I'm like, no man, I want everyone to feel like they can be their full selves
right
in these spaces, and specifically spaces of worship. And I mean, just the hard truth is, people of color historically and still today have to assimilate into these spaces a lot more, into dominant white culture, more than the other way around. That's just facts. If you don't believe that, I strongly recommend you check yourself a little bit, because that's so true. And I've seen it with my own eyes. And I think one of the best examples, I've seen as there's been growing pains in some of the spaces we've been in, is when a conference, for example, one particular year, I think it was before I even really knew you. I was at this conference, and now you were familiar with, but you weren't there yet. But the room was just a lot more diverse, a lot more people of color, a lot more Black people familiar with the Black church was in the room. And the speaker, somebody we both know, was, and this guy, I've heard him speak for years. Is a Black, speaks as if he is a Black preacher in a Black church, regardless of who the audience is. And he adjusts, but he's going to be himself. And I love it. He's done it for decades. And I remember the specific year, like some of the schools that were there were like, there's a lot of Black students, and the room felt different than other years when I've been in there. And there was a lot more call and response, a lot more amens, a lot more standing up. I mean, like, wiping sweat off their brow because they're like so into it. Like, I mean, clapping and the tension was palpable. Because the predominant culture in the room was not loving it, and you could feel it. And I had some conversations even afterwards with some people, with some well-meaning white students being really turned off by it, and even a little worked up, and just kind of attributing it to, with this language of they like to show off. They don't need to do that. They shouldn't do that. And I think those are just examples that are helpful to point out. Because I'll keep it real. Like, that's not what I grew up around either. Like, I grew up around white culture, and a lot, like, that was not my style of worship. But in those conversations, I had to kind of, I was talking to people. I was like, look, we need to change our language, and even how we embrace this kind of thing, of like being thriving multicultural atmosphere in a Christian space, especially places of worship. Because what you're really saying is, no, that's not your preference, and that's not what you were used to. And what you're failing to do is recognize, do you not see how empowering it is for another culture who has been marginalized for who knows how long to feel empowered and seen by the person up front, embracing and speaking in their culture? And think about all these years, like before this year, that you came to all these spaces, and it was exactly how you were used to it. That's what assimilation is. Like, everyone else, this room could look exactly the same, actually, but you didn't see that because you had assimilated, or they had assimilated to what you like.
That's good.
So that was years ago, and it's gotten still ways to go, but it's gotten that room continued to grow in diversity, and there's a lot of positive things I've seen, and that it's a lot more multi-ethnic, multi-ethnic, and I love seeing that. I got some years on you, but I love seeing that because, like I said, you weren't there yet, and so I think you kind of came into my life and in these communities we're in, at just a sweet time where you you could kind of enter in and kind of usher this in, but you kind of also benefited from it in a good way of like, in some ways it's kind of all you knew. Like you've seen a ton of growth, but some of it was like all you knew. And so I'd even wonder like, man, certain years, like I'm like, man, I don't even know if I would have been like, yeah, this is a place for you, man. And so I'm incredibly thankful for just the timing, even of when even I kind of ran into you, because like honestly, some years I might have been like, dang, actually, I don't even know if I'd stick around, because we're not a place where you're gonna be able to be fully yourself, feel like safely you could be yourself without assimilating. And so that's kind of always my litmus test and like my measuring stick of like, man, it can always be better, but how are we doing, and how are we a place that can not only be for like a Trav and a K, but also a place that they also feel comfortable inviting people that look like y'all coming into the community as well. And I think that's also something I take really seriously as well. Like, okay, how can we keep this up? Not just have it be this year it's like this, and then next year it's not. It's like, no, we want this to be who we are because of our faith.
Yes.
And our convictions.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Have we hit on everything from last episode? I'm glad you brought up that Preston Perry thing.
Yeah.
That's super helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think like talking about that, I think you asked me about my experience of when I first came to Crew.
Okay.
And just like, the worship, and also just the dynamic of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's that been like? So over the last years since you've been around, I lead a lot of the music at worship and at our church.
Yeah.
So which is very different experiences. So give some of your church background, and then coming into what it was like coming into our college ministry setting with worship and stuff.
Yeah. So for context, guys, like OG knows, I didn't grow up in the church. But whenever I was rarely, visiting church with my grandma, who loves Jesus, still loves Jesus till this day, and has made a big impact on my life too. It was a black church, and we were in there for about 4 hours. You had the organ playing, the pastor was sweating, praise dancing all over the place. That was the experience that I saw. So when I came to Crew, I was super excited, and I was, I started walking with Jesus, and I wanted to worship with other brothers and sisters. But the worship was different, and we had songs, and OG was singing these songs and leading us in worship, and we had songs like "Be Thou My Vision," like "Be Thou My Vision," and it's like, it was different, but also like me and Kay, like we were able to like fully embrace it and say like, man, this is about Jesus, man. Like I know this is not specifically what we're used to, but we can still like embrace this and worship our Lord. And even if it's not our first preference, I still think it's beautiful in its own right. Now, we've had people come to the ministry that were just straight up and like, I don't want to worship like that. And that kind of like made me start to think and really start to like, and you've already been thinking this for years, and already like we're caring about that and caring about those people that came into Crew, just starting to think about like that perspective of it, of like, oh, so like there are some people that come in and say like, I don't really get down with that, I don't really want to worship like that. And I started to think about like the importance of the variety and different preferences being touched upon in our community and in worship just in general. And I started thinking about like, okay, like how do we help these people feel welcome? How do we help these people feel seen and cared for and loved? Because just because me and Kay are in there worshiping with our hands high and embracing it doesn't mean the next person is going to feel the same way. Yeah. So I started thinking about those things after I started going to Crew, and that started to be like a really important thing to me too. So
yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, you of course shared that with me too. So doing, I mean, you already said Crew. I tried not to say Crew or like different organizations because everyone doesn't sign off on. Not, I don't want to they don't endorse, the podcast, but we're not getting in trouble or anything. This is all good stuff. Yeah, with doing crew or whatever campus ministry, I've been leading a lot of the worship over the years, and I also lead at our church, and so like I think that's been a great balance for myself because, we do the best we can at crew with having to be a diverse worship style. What I mean by best we can is like we're aware of like the importance and necessity of prioritizing multi-ethnic thriving atmosphere for worship styles.
Yes. Yep.
But you only know what you know and you only got what you got. And so our band, they're great, like super talented, but we are not like a incredibly diverse worshiping style as far as there's certainly no one on our band, and they would not mind me sharing this, that like we're not experienced like in the Black church even.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to go up there and pull off really any really, really upbeat gospel song as much as I would love to do that and would love to prioritize that. I'm not advocating for doing that poorly to anybody that's like listening. It's like, oh, I just need to like tomorrow start doing gospel. It's like, no, that's not what you do. That's not what you do. Don't do that sloppily, guys.
Right.
And so I try, and I co-leader, like we try to be as diverse as we can, literally as we can, and draw from different styles and different tempos and stuff like that. And then, in our community, man, like y'all just love to worship. So like it's never any pressure really. But I do think about that. I'm like, man, yeah, we're doing our best, but we're not going to really perfectly hit all these demographics. Now at our church, because the team is so big, and shout out to our guy, our worship pastor, EL, like he's got that experience with some other people on our band that have much more experience with a wider range of gospel music and different other genres that I don't, and that's why it's really beautiful. We're at our church on our worship teams. We can do a lot more different styles based on who's singing different weeks. And we can, I've been on sets and bands where like we do like, Israel songs like "You Are Good" that we just did that this past week. Again, I say rejoice, but like EL's heading those up, and like
Lord You're Mighty.
Lord You're Mighty. Like I'm helping out, and I love it because I'm learning it, and like, is that the style I grew up on, or I do a lot more now, or like is my go-to songs every time? No, but what I've learned being part of that atmosphere is like it is my go-to preference to have a diversity of worship music I'm listening to and prefer during church too. Like I'm like, this doesn't happen, but if there's a week that goes by where it's like we did all Hillsong songs, it's like I would notice. I'd be like, dang, like where was that? It would just stick out. Because our priorities is like diverse worship, not for diversity's sake, but because it empowers people in the congregation to be like, oh man, they're diverse here, like not just in word, but in word and deed. And I think some of those powerful times, being whether I'm up front or in the congregation or when we do other languages, which I don't speak another language myself, but like it's so powerful when we have like our brothers and sisters sing and speak in other languages, and just listening to it, it's like, man. And part of that is because I know that there are some people in the congregation that are like surprised when they hear it, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's my mother tongue. Like, man, where'd that come from? And like, it's just contagious of just that feeling of like, man, like I like, because they've never heard that like in that kind of setting, and sure they weren't expecting it. And so anyway, I could riff a lot for that, but that's how to kind of explain what it looks like to do your best. And you only know what you know. Like I like that phrase. Like you only know what you know, but it's about your heart posture towards, okay, what am I gonna do with what I do know? And grow versus being like, I think there's a difference between that and being like, nah, I only know what I know. Stop and be like, who cares? It's like, no, you know what you know now, but go off of that. And that's where I think, I'm kind of riffing now, but like you can kind of decide to keep going or not, and that's why I think some pushback can come where it's like, well, now I just feel like can't ever do anything right, and you get paralyzed. It's like that's not what we shame people. It's like that's not what I want to do. Or would say is the answer. It's like, no, what does it look like to move forward and take these that, that first step.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the openness and consideration and the awareness, specifically that you have, that really like allows people like me to feel like, oh, he cares, like he really does love us and he considers this. And like when those worship songs come on, and sometimes at church we do the different languages, like I love the fact that like specifically when I'm sitting, like we get hype and we're like, we don't even know how to say most of this stuff. But we're like, yo, like this is fire. Like we get so hyped because I just think about heaven, and I just think about like the beauty of it, and I can get emotional with that. But I just also I wanted to bring up this example again because I really do. It's kind of silly, but it's why I believe we can come together as different cultures and worship to the Lord in unique different ways, based upon our backgrounds and how we grew up. Like I was talking about the happy birthday thing last time.
Oh yeah, share that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, just like, so we'll have brothers and sisters here that have birthdays, and the first preference to go to is the RU1, RU2, and then also obviously the happy birthday song, like happy birthday to you, and
riveting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And me and my guys, me and my colored brothers, we'll obviously sing that, and we'll, that's cool, like that's the happy birthday song. And we won't shut it off and be like, nah, that ain't the way you're supposed to say it. Like, nah, shut that down. We're going to do it a better way. We're going to sing that one first. And then we're going to say, okay, let's sing it our way now. And then we're going to say, happy birthday to you. Happy. And it's just like, to me, that's like a beautiful thing and a beautiful example of like, no, like we can coincide and not degrade the next experience or degrade the next preference of singing this way or living this way or looking this way, but doing it together. And it could be a beautiful thing, specifically with glorifying and worshiping Christ. So yeah.
Amen, man. That's so good. Appreciate you doing this, my brother.
Yep.
What's 1 to 2 things you hope sticks out from this conversation to people listening?
Yeah. I would just say that, especially like listening to our dynamic and our relationship and how the Lord has used you in my life. Man, we truly do need, and I know you said stop with the glaze and stop putting you on the pedestal, but I have to.
That's the end of that. No, go ahead.
But I literally have to. Like, OG has meant so much to me in my life. Specifically pouring into me, doing life with me. He's the bigger brother to me, pointing me to Christ and discipling me. But his love and his care for people and the experiences that people have gone through and the injustices and the hard things and the reality of the hard things in life that people go through, that a lot of other people are not willing to talk about and tackle because it's uncomfortable. We need people like you, OG, in this world, more people. And it has truly changed my life. I don't want to get emotional. I can easily get emotional about it, but it has truly changed my life. And I am definitely not the man that I am today without you and you pressing in on those things. And I just always have appreciated your heart. And I truly want the person or the people that are listening to this podcast to like, just think about that. Consider that, like, consider those things. Think about like the heart posture that OG has and just like why important it is, because I would say I'm a spitting image of the effect and the impact of that, and his heart posture. And that's what I would say. And then also just the beauty of different cultures, different tongues, different nations coming together to worship one Lord. And it's beautiful. And that's what the Lord calls us to do, and to not live in a box. I just never want to live in a box. I never want to be ignorant to the next person. And I feel like we should all have that heart posture. And not to say that I do it perfectly at all. I have so many things to learn and so many ways that I could grow in that and be more cognitive of that. But like, if we all had that heart posture of just wanting to learn and wanting to learn about the next experience and the next person, I believe we will live in definitely a way better world. And I know that sounds cliche and kind of cheesy, but I truly believe that. So That's what I would say.
Yeah, I love you, man. I'll try to receive that. I don't need to. I'll try to put my walls down and receive that. Sounds like you're saying a little bit of a goodbye, and I forgot to ask you about that. So I guess it is a little bit of that, which is why I really want to squeeze this in, as our time is winding down. So you are, say what you want to say, but we've been doing ministry together here in Radford for 4 years now. You're moving on to something new. You want to tell people what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, so me and OG are both from 757. Shout out 757 family. Man, I'm actually gonna be going back home this up and coming year to still serve with the ministry that we serve with, the campus ministry, and I'm actually gonna be serving at ODU, Old Dominion University. Woo! So I'm so excited about that, but it's also very bittersweet because the Lord has done, man, so much in this area. I've been talking about OG a lot through OG, but just through so many different people here. The Lord saved me here. He changed my life here, and I've been able to serve him here. And it's kind of like this is like the sending hub now. Like I'm being sent, even though it's back home. This is where I was saved, and this is where I was built up. So that's what I got planned for this up and coming year.
I mean, it's the epitome of bittersweet. Now that we're doing this, I got the privilege of sending you and Kay off at our last, large group meeting, and then Caitlin got to send you off a little bit from our church, and just it was an honor to be able to do that. Not for any kind of like notoriety or anything, but it's just been so beautiful, and I truly take so much pride in the people that have been outsiders looking in on what's been going on and our relationship, and then just so many the growing communities that we've had the privilege of being a part of. And we throw around the terms like you just mentioned, bittersweet, and I don't even think I said this part when I sent y'all out, but like it's so much of both. Like it is bitter because, man, I just want to live life with you, my little brothers, every day, like we've been doing for 4 years. But it's also so sweet because, man, it's so easy to send y'all out too. Like it's so clear that like you guys are gonna do some crazy things, and the Lord's gonna keep using you where y'all are going. And it's just easy. It just makes sense in a profound way, not a little cutesy cliche way, but it's a beautiful thing. Being able to send you guys out from this little old town that no one knows anything about. I don't think I ever really truly will, but man, privilege to send y'all out, man. I know a lot of people love and miss y'all, but I mean, this another sweet part is you're going to my hometown, so my mom won't be happy. So another reason for me to come home and visit. Trav, I love you, man.
Love you too.
Thanks for sharing thanks for being vulnerable, taking some questions on the spot, and opening up and sharing your story with us. We gotta go. We gotta watch this Lakers game.
Yeah, we gotta go watch that. This
on. Listeners, thank you so much for listening, especially if you made it all the way to the end. We love y'all. The music you're listening to was done by our guy Dylan Dent. The artwork was created by Ashley Bush. And please don't forget to check out the Patreon, patreon.com/racially speaking. Peace.
Peace.
Life in 3 dimensions got me bent and got me twisted. I know I done said a lot, but I should probably stop pretending. I don't really hold the key and I can't really push a button. I just step up to the mic and try my very best to bust it, but I ran out of breath. It's tight in my chest, my feet just might fail. I can't stand the pressure. The nightmare might scare you, no worse than reality. They hunt you by day, R.I.P. Ahmaud Arbery. Everybody got a time, but that's less than comforting. I hope I'm alive by the time they choose to comfort me. Mosquitoes in the vein, or leeches on my soul. This money on my mind is a fracture in my bones. You get crippled by continuing existence like a ghost. And they wonder why we drink, and they wonder why we smoke, and they wonder why we think that everything's a joke. I'm shocked that we can sleep, must be the thought of letting go. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Some days you know I lie better than others. Others I like to lie under the covers, covered in pins and needles, walking on eggshells. And you tell me how to be, and I know that won't end well. Well, I might not either. The 27 Club has my name in the ether. I just need to find a creative way to live, a creative way to die. Not a difference in my eyes, but light passed out is 50 lashes. So I'm passed out next to the trash can. I forego all your opinions. I opt in for optional opposition, cause the weight of the world can leave me low. So I just shrug my shoulders and shake up the whole globe. And I don't need your map, I have an atlas, but a lack of moral compass makes the page have its effective. Look, it's like fighting water with a flame. It's like being known without a name. It's like being different but the same. It's time to retire me from pain, but I'm gonna rage until they turn the page. I thought I was flying, I was falling with style. Don't know if I can stop, I could be going for miles. I'm making craters, saying see you later to my own smile. I'm my own now, put a Johnny Blaze, I'm a ghost now. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. Better watch your back, boy. You wanna crash course? Better watch your back, boy. You wanna crash course? Better watch your back, boy. You wanna crash course? Better watch your back, boy. You wanna crash course? Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley. I'm going underground, the world is better off without me. Now I lay me down to sleep, I'm fed up with the valley.